Hello friends, welcome back to another 2 Hours 1 Life tutorial. Today I'll show you how to find food and stay alive when playing in a solo camp, also known as an eve camp. It's pretty easy to starve when you're starting a new town, so I'll share some of my top methods for surviving alone in the wilderness. First, to start your game, you'll input a selection of letters or numbers to create a private spawn code. This will drop you at a randomized spot on the map. Next, you'll spawn in. Make sure you scout around a little bit before you get started to make sure you didn't spawn next to an existing town. If you do find a town near your spawn, simply go back to the main screen and input a new spawn code. I'm zooming out a lot so that I can get a good look at the land around me. You're looking for a green grassy area like this one, which is the easiest one to settle in. Here's a map of the different biomes. They always form in the same pattern. If you're looking for jungle, for example, you know you need to go to the prairie and then the badlands to find it. Same with tundra or desert. Right now we're looking for the green area, which forms within the swamp. I've just noticed that my first food craving is grapes. These grow in the prairie or yellow biome. After eating the grapes, wild carrot is my new craving. Those also grow in the prairie. Now I'm going to pick up a round stone and make myself a sharp rock. By cutting down these reeds, I can combine them to make a basket, and now I have something that I can carry things in. I also grabbed the wild carrot so that I can eat it when I'm hungry again. My next craving is the psilocybe mushroom, which is actually pretty hard to get. I'm going to find some dirt and empty it out, which will allow a mushroom to grow in about an hour, so I'm going to have to keep checking on it. But this won't be an easy craving for me to tend to very soon. If this was a regular solo game, I might actually consider just dying here and respawning in, so that I could get some easier cravings. They really give a bump to your food meter and make the game a lot easier. Skipping ahead, I've gathered a lot of milkweed to make some ropes. There will be a lot of milkweed gathering in the early game, so just make sure that all the milkweed you see, you gather it up and combine it into ropes. Right now I am making some stakes so that I can use these rope to make snares. These are necessary for catching rabbits. I'm also going to mark my camp so that I don't get lost. Back in the prairie, I find some rabbit holes, which I put the snares on. It'll take a few seconds for the rabbits to get caught, and I can use that time to explore around and see if I can find any mines or other useful things. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything useful, but I did get these 2 rabbits, and I can start making tools now. I'll need more rope for that as well, but I can at least get these stakes set up. And now I'm back with some more rope. I can set up a couple of tied shafts. One is going to become a knife and the other is going to become a hatchet. So there's my knife. I can now process my rabbit skins. And I'm also going to check my snares, and I return with 3 more rabbits, which I can process as well. My goal here is to make a backpack, which takes 4 skins and 1/2 of a skin. All that's missing is a needle, and in order to get that, I need to eat a rabbit first. To eat the rabbit, I'll need to cook it. So I'll have a skewer, and then I'll start making the things I need to start a fire. That includes a long shaft, a second shorter shaft, as well as a curved branch, plus more rope, which I've already collected. This makes a bow drill, and after getting a leaf and some kindling, as well as making a hatchet, there's my kindling, some fluff from the juniper tree. I can combine the leaf onto the fluff, and then add the kindling. There we go, we have a fire. Now I don't want to put the rabbit on the fire right away because it will burn, so I'm going to just wait for the fire to burn out. Standing in the fire helps my temperature meter get closer to the optimum temperature, so I do that for a little while I'm waiting for it to burn down. Okay, so now it's just coals and I'm ready to cook my rabbits. I decide to cook 2 and I'm going to save the rest for pie, which we'll be making pretty soon. Eating one and then picking it up leaves behind a bone, which I can use the knife on to make a needle. Combine it with thread, and we have a backpack. You guessed it, I've been collecting more ropes, because I'm going to need them for the next part here. So with a yew tree branch, we're going to make our first weapon, which is a bow. There we go. We'll also need an arrow. So if I combine a thread with this skewer, and then add on a flint arrowhead, as well as some fletching, from this goose, we'll have an arrow. And actually the goose is the first thing we're going to want to hunt because it doesn't fight back and it won't kill us. So let's take out this goose. There we go. And so the next time that I'm hungry, that's going to be what I eat because I haven't eaten goose yet this life. So let's make another fire. Kindling with my axe, tinder from the juniper tree, a leaf, bow drill, add the leaf to the shaft, put it on my burning tinder, and then add in the kindling. And we've got a fire. While that's burning, I'm going to collect up some clay and reeds. Together it makes adobe. We're going to need that to make an oven and a kiln. So I need a whole bunch. And while I'm collecting, I'm keeping an eye out for wild boars. They are the only enemy that lives in this swamp, but they can kill you pretty quickly, and it only takes one hit to take me down. So I'm going to want to be very careful. And now that my fire is burned down, I'm going to take the skewer and cook up this goose. And once it says I'm hungry again, that will be my snack. To build the oven, I hit it with a round stone, and then add a second piece of adobe. The kiln is built the same way, but it has a third piece of adobe added on at the very end. I'm just deciding on the spacing here to make sure that they're not too close together, that they're difficult to work with. So there's this first step, second step, and third step. And this last piece of adobe we will keep for later once we start making a forge. More ropes. And I notice that I'm getting hungry, so I'm going to just have a little goose snack. Gives me a really nice bonus. You can see the cooked foods give a good bonus. I've been out collecting more rabbits. I realized that I'm still pretty naked and that now that I have access to these snares, I might as well make myself some clothes. So 2 skins combined with a bit of thread and the needle makes a nice hat. I can cut this rope apart to make thread again, and I'll make myself a little loincloth as well. And then what I'm going to do is take my knife, my thread and needle, and I'm going to head out into the snow biome where I noticed a really good method for making myself a coat. I'm also going to grab this shaft. Here I am in the snow biome, and I found what I'm looking for, which is this seal. Fortunately, it doesn't end well for him. The knife removes the fur, and the needle and thread makes me a very nice coat. And I can take this shaft and head back to camp. So now I'm collecting up a bunch of clay. Since I have a kiln, it's time to start making some dishes. So I'm going to need quite a lot of clay, and we'll be making bowls and plates. I've also grabbed a shaft, which I can make into a pair of tongs with this knife. And we'll need those to pick up the hot plates and bowls for the kiln. The round stone makes them first into bowls, and then into plates, and then back into lumps of clay. So if you change your mind, you can always change them back. And they're ready to go into the oven. So I've put some kindling into my kiln, and I can use the straight shaft to bring the fire over and light it up, pick up the tongs, and you only get a few seconds to cook these bowls and plates, so you gotta be real quick. I'm not the quickest, but I do get them all done. It does take me a second lighting of my kiln, but that's no problem. As long as you get enough plates and bowls, that's the goal here. Back in the prairie, I'm going to use a sharp stone to cut some wheat, and I'll bring this back to camp. We're going to start making some pies. So I'll need a branch, which I can hit this wheat with. That's not the right type of branch. Nor is that. There we go. Alright, so I'll use this branch to hit the wheat. And then pop it in a bowl. A bit of water. You can just use the ponds for this early water. Eventually you will have a well, but that's not until you have tools and a shovel, so it's a little ways off still. Using the round stone on the wheat, I can mix it together and then put some on a plate right away. I've also realized that I have the makings for an omelet, so I'm going to put an egg into a bowl, stir it with a skewer, and I want to cook it over these hot coals, but I realize that I need a flat stone, so I'm going to do a big run through the swamp, dodging all these pigs. The prairie is relatively safe, but you can see there's wolves in this gray Badlands biome. So I've grabbed a flat rock. I'm going to bring that back to camp, once again dodging these pigs. And put it onto the hot coals. Now before I cook my omelet, I want to make sure I have a plate ready because it cooks very fast. There we go. Omelet cooked and eaten. So there's another quick food that you can make in an early game once you have plates and bowls. And I'm just going to start putting my pie dough onto all of my plates. There we go. First pie. Rabbit. This has been sitting here on the ground, but it's still good in a pie. So in it goes. The second pie, we're going to take berries from this bush and just put them directly in. And then we can combine. So the berries and the floor rabbit with a sharp stone. Ready for pie. And I've got one more pie crust left, and I noticed that there's an apple tree just north of me. So we're gonna go with an apple pie. Now there's kindling in our oven. We can light it up. And just like the fire, we actually need to wait for the flames to go down before we can cook our pies. But it'll only take a couple of seconds before they die out. So for each bite of pie, you'll get a yum on the first bite. So now that we've got pies, we're getting pretty set on food. We're ready to start a garden. So I'm just a little bit east of my camp. I noticed there's lots of soil here and quite a few duck ponds. And we just need a small garden at this point. So with baskets full of dirt, I start making some mounds on the ground. Right now I'm looking for a long shaft. I have to keep going further and further. I'm going to pull some of these off the trees so that they regrow, so that we'll have more shafts later, because they're very useful, especially in the early game. I'm going to take it back to camp, and this is going to be a hoe. Some rope. Once again, that rope is very useful. And my stone. And before I hoe this dirt, I want to try to make it go as far as possible, so I'm actually going to make the mounds slightly smaller, because you can still hoe the mounds when they're a little bit smaller. So 2 bowls worth of dirt makes a pretty good row. And those are ready to hoe. I'm going to grab a quick bite of pie on my way out of camp. You'll see it gives me a really nice bonus and filled up my food meter, so I won't have to worry about any food while I'm dodging boars and going to find seeds for my garden. So first I grab a seed from this carrot and put it in my backpack. I'm also looking for cucumber. This is actually squash, so that's not what I want. There's also some that grow in the green grassy area, which I'm going to check next. I remembered I need a sharp stone. So I've got an onion and some garlic. And those will be perfect for my garden. I'll start taking them back. I'm going to show a trick here. If you cut up a wild carrot and put it into a bowl, it turns into, and then dump it out, it turns into a fancy carrot. So I've also brought that back to camp, so I can eat that for an extra yum, because a grown carrot is different than a wild carrot. So I planted the garlic, I planted the onions, I planted the wild carrots, and now I can water them all. The carrots will go to seed if you don't keep an eye on them, so I'm going to keep a close eye. Our next project also involves a yew branch and a thread, and we're making a fishing rod. Let's check on the garden. Garlic is done. I'm going to put it in a bowl and hit with a stone. Now I made a mistake. I actually wanted to plant the entire bowl here, which I can do the next row down, because you can just plant a whole bowl worth into one row instead of one at a time, which is what I did accidentally on the top row there. And jumping ahead, our carrots are done, so we're going to pull them all before they go to seed. And then we're off into the desert to find a rose bush. Using my knife on the rose gives me a seed, and then taking it into this snowbank in a bowl, I can get a stratified rose seed, which I plant back at camp. There isn't any water near me, so we're going to be ice fishing once the rose bush grows. A little bit of water, and then you just touch your fishing rod on it to get a hook, and here we are ice fishing. I brought a bowl of worms from an emptied out soil pit, and once I add one of those to my rod, you're ready to ice fish. So I'm hoping for different types of fish, which each will give me a yum. Or I'm hoping for a pair of old boots, which will help complete my snazzy little outfit. So there's my first boot. I will need to fix it before I can wear it with a one piece of thread. So we'll take it back to camp and see if we can get another so we have the complete pair. Oh, my hook broke. I'll have to go back to camp with my boot and get a new hook. So I'm just marking my fishing spot, and I'll head on back to camp. Okay. We've been bitten by a wolf. So we're going to die. There's just no way around it. The good news is you can spawn back in using your spawn code. I'm going to name myself Wolf, just so that anyone who comes to this camp will be able to see my corpse and my name. But unfortunately, there's no way to save myself. I don't have a medical kit or anyone else to rescue me, and so I'm just gonna die. I can spawn back in and start a new game. I've got a great start here. I could turn this into a thriving town if I wanted to. But I'll end it there. I hope everybody had fun watching this. I hope you learned some stuff. I really appreciate your subscriptions, your comments, watching my videos. It all really helps, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.